The NBA Board of Governors meeting was last week, and there is a lot to talk about from it. New anti-tanking proposals. Will they work? What are the owners saying about it? What are people behind the scenes saying about it? That's going to be the topic on today's show with Marc Stein. This is the All NBA Show. Starts now. What is up, everybody, and welcome to a weekend edition of the All NBA Show, powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined, as I always am over the weekends, by my esteemed colleague, Marc Stein, the man in the know, behind the scenes in the NBA. Marc, I feel like this was a big week. I've been waiting to talk to you about this for like 4 or 5 days. I'm very excited for the show. How you doing?
Adam Mares, I'm doing okay. Still on the mend. I'm more worried about you. I saw your tweet about Aaron Gordon with this unexpected absence.
Yeah.
In this Nuggets-Warriors game that will follow this show. So I'm worried about you. I'm worried about me. The only good news is we got Emma Clark at the controls. Other than that, I can promise nothing.
There you go. Yeah, throwback show with Emma, the original OG producer of the All-NBA show, behind the ones and twos. Aaron Gordon, I don't know what to make of it. The Nuggets have, 7 games left to figure out their defense, and their defensive player is out with an unexpected hamstring strain. So
they're going to be healthy in the playoffs. They're just getting it all out of the way in the regular season. Every conceivable injury, as long as they're all done by April 12th, all good.
Sure. That's the hope. That's certainly the hope. But that's a conversation for a different show. This one, jam-packed, because the Board of Governors, we talked about it very briefly last week, setting the table for it, but I feel like it was even more interesting than what we kind of teased going into it. And on this show, we're going to talk about 3 specific things. We're going to talk about expansion, an update on that, as obviously they met in discussions furthered on that. The 65-game rule, which is kind of becoming a big story here down the stretch, is there's multiple MVP and All-NBA candidates that are within 1 game of that rule. But we have to start with anti-tanking. And I'm going to start, and I really am just curious to hear what you have to say with it. But the big news, the headline news coming out of the Board of Governors meeting was that the NBA is taking this very seriously. And they are leaking. They're putting out into the world that there are 3 things they're chewing on. Doesn't mean it's the only 3 things, I think, but 3 possible solutions to tanking. And we can get into all 3 here in a second. But to me, this is the big story, is one, that they're leaking this idea of like, hey, it seems to me like they're saying, put it out there. What do people think about these possible solutions? And then the specifics of what those solutions are very interesting to me in ways that are not necessarily positive. But let me just set the stage with that. That's the big story. And to me, it's a big story that they're leaking this or trying to get it out to the public. Do you agree that it seems very deliberate of, hey, what does the public think of this?
The league whispers actually know that they didn't want this out there because from their seat, these are still concepts. They shouldn't be painted, according to the league, as proposals. The way it was explained to me, there are 3 broad concepts that were presented to the owners this week, but they are going to be tweaked. I was told, don't be surprised if we end up with some sort of amalgamation of all 3. But look, if your theory is correct and they wanted this out there and they wanted to gauge public reaction was almost unanimously, no, this ain't it. First of all, at least 2 of the 3 concepts are so hard to explain. Like, you can't, we thought the new All-Star game format was tough. I mean, this is like none of these concepts are being explained in a sentence or 2, which right there is a red flag, because you kind of need the public to understand what you're doing here. But to me, Adam Silver, the newsiest thing, the loudest declaration we got from the commissioner was, we're going to fix it, full stop. And then 2 days later, ESPN reports the various concepts that were presented to the owners, and it makes you step back and say, why was Adam Silver so confident when he got up to the podium that any of these are going to, quote, fix it. And that's the thing. In the same press conference, Adam Silver, they've been trying for 40 years to fix it. There have been flaws with the lottery since its inception in 1985. It's not easily fixed. And I think the concepts that are out there kind of let you know it's not easily fixed. And there's still a lot of work to do. And I mean, the other thing is they said there will be a special vote in May. There is going to be a vote in May to institute changes for next season. So there's a lot of work to do between now and whatever May date they choose for this vote, which is not set in stone yet. I mean, you've seen the concepts. Were you wowed by any of them?
Well, let's talk about them. But because here's what I will say about Adam Silver, and I think this is maybe his magnum opus here when we talk about how he solves problems and maybe creates new ones. All of his ideas since he's taken over, to me, feel like Rube Goldberg machines. They're in their complexity. They have these like 12 parts and of this and that. Like, even if you think about the in-season tournament, whether you think that's a hit or not, every year it comes around, and every year there's, well, who's in the lead? What has to happen? There's a point differential and there's a tie, and how does this work? And teams get other games. And I'm not saying I can't figure it out, but it's my job to. Like, I am invested in this, and I'll sit down and I'll know going into any given week what needs to happen. But I'm not the target demo for this. The target demo is the casual fan. And the casual fan, I think, looks at this and says, it's kind of complicated. We don't really know what makes sense of it. You've got the play-in tournament, and then, you know, how that works with people. Again, not hard for me to follow, but the casual fan. These tanking ones to me are even hard for me. Maybe it's just because they're new, but they are layered. It's if this, then that.
Now, it was a universal reaction. I think everybody felt that way. Now, look, when you really study them, the first one is not that complicated.
Correct.
The lottery goes from 14 teams to 18.
Yep.
So even the 4 teams that advance out of the play-in tournament are in the lottery. The 10 worst teams, so the 10 teams that don't go to the play-in, they all get a flat 8% shot at the number 1 overall pick. And then 11 to 20, which are the 8 teams that made the play-in tournament, their odds will be obviously less than 8 and go, you know, it'll all be divvied up based on record. So that one's not so complex when you really look at it. But the other two, you know, the NBA, the third one, the NBA keeps calling this 5x5 concept. It's like, you know, what the hell does that mean? 5x5. Like, we're supposed to know what we just know what that means. And then the middle concept, and excuse me, apologies again. I'm still trying to get rid of this cough. It's close to being gone, so I appreciate everyone's patience with me. The second concept puts 22 of the league's 30 teams in the lottery, which means even first-round losers are in the lottery, which they think is going to incentivize winning. You know, again, I don't know that in its final form we'll see any of these 3 concepts actually chosen as the one, or will it be like a mix of all 3, or will something new come to the table? But yeah, I mean, when these first came out, it was not just you, it was not just me, it was everybody. Confusion reigned.
And to me, this is another trait for me of Adam Silver's era, is that he seems to think every problem has an administrative or it's a problem that can be a solution that can be found with legislation. Well, we'll create a system whereby the machine works on its own. And I just wonder if so many of the league's problems are not about that. They're more cultural. Like, your league will find loopholes to everything. And this feels like, okay, well, we've made it more complicated. But Mark, you know this. You covered the league when there were maybe a handful of guys in a front office, handful of coaches, handful of this or that. Right now, there are people in every front office working round the clock to find loopholes in everything, from contracts to training to everything else. So if you create something that's confusing for your audience, you might lose them. But I promise you, the teams are going to figure out the loopholes to these in very short order. So that's what all of these, and we can go through them here in a second and talk about them a little bit more in detail. But to me, they all seem like, ooh, this is so complicated, they'll never find a way around it. And I look at it and go, they'll find a way around it immediately. You'll find somebody finding a way to tank through all of these solutions.
Yeah, I mean, again, what struck me the most is that he was so confident saying the league's going to fix it, but then again, later in the press conference, he was far shy of confident when they really kind of brought the subject back to the table. But again, the Board of Governors, they meet every spring at the end of the regular season. They meet every summer at Summer League, and they meet in the fall right before the regular season starts. So they've called a special session for May to deal with this and vote on this. So the meetings that take place over the next month are going to be hugely pivotal because they've got to come up with a system. Whatever is the final verdict here, it needs the approval of 23 teams. 23 of the 30 teams have to ratify this for the changes to actually take place. But among the important things Adam Silver said the other day was they want the changes to be known before this draft and before free agency, so teams know exactly what the landscape looks like before they take hold next season. So I mean, this is you usually I'm usually guilty of expecting a lot of revelations the handful of times every year that Adam Silver does a press conference, but there was actually a lot. There was a lot said Wednesday at the podium that was headline worthy, I would say.
Well, let me ask it this way then, rather than get into the details. What do the owners say about this? First of all, do they agree that tanking is as big of a problem as the media seems to think, myself included? I think tanking is a problem with the league. I get frustrated, when you expect a big game, maybe you buy tickets to it and the game is absolutely atrocious late in the year. So I think it is a problem that should be addressed. Do owners agree with that? And do these ideas excite them, or was their reaction? Twitter is negative about everything. Social media is negative about everything. So part of me thinks we could put that negativity in a box. The people that really matter are the decision makers, in this case, the owners. Do they respond to this the same way I do, which is to say, what are we doing? This feels like what is the swallowing a bird to eat the fly, and you just keep doing this where you create bigger and bigger problems trying to solve the smaller one you created to begin with.
Jake Fisher and I posted a combo reported piece on Saturday, kind of summing up the whole lottery situation. And what we included in the piece was sources telling us that there has been even before this week's owners meetings in Manhattan, there has been a lot of support among teams, among the ownership ranks, to take the lottery from 14 teams to 18. And that surprised me a little bit that, 2/3 of the league is going to be in the lottery now. I mean, that's a lot.
Well, real quick, Mark, there's one thing that I think makes sense about that, and that is this idea that your 4 worst teams are the ones that most need a franchise-altering trade. And the NBA is unique from every other sport, and that one player can make the difference. So if I look at this and I say, do the Portland Trailblazers need a star cornerstone piece less than the Brooklyn Nets? Maybe slightly less, but not by a lot. So part of me understands this idea of there's only so many great players, and more teams maybe do need to feel like they could win that. Chicago Bulls are a great example of this. But again, this isn't about making things fair. It's about getting rid of tanking, which is hurting the product. And that's where I say I don't know if this changes that dynamic.
Yeah, there's basically what we've been told is there's a lot of support for expanding the lottery from 14 teams to 18, and then the way for the in those top 10 for the odds to be flattened, so there's no difference between 1 through 10 in terms of who has the best shot at the number 1 overall pick. And that's not how I would do it. If it was up to me, I would pick a number. I've advocated for 27. I've heard 25. I've heard 24 in Kobe Bryant's honor. Let's pick a win total that teams have to hit to have the highest possible odds at the number 1 overall pick. Let's do that to incentivize winning. So you can't go 19-63 and have a shot at the number 1 overall pick. You got to win at least 27 games. And if you don't, you go farther down the order. That's the kind of model I would prefer. but you will not be surprised to hear they did not call for my input. And the owners apparently want, flattened odds for the 10 worst teams in the league.
Again, here's the problem I see already with just putting a minimum games you have to win. Utah this year could have had a good start, looked pretty competitive. Can't you win 20 games early in the year before the trade deadline? Trade your players away and say we only have to win 5 games the rest of the way.
That's why I like 27, because 27 is basically almost, it's a little shy of 0.333. Okay. It's a little shy of, you got to win 1 of every 3 games. And I just think that's let's look at the standings. There are a lot of teams, I think, shy right now of 27.
Yes, there's 7 or 8 teams right now shy of that. Correct.
So
and none of them might win another game unless they're playing each other the rest of the way.
So that's why I like that idea, because you have to demonstrate. Look at it right now. The 8 worst teams in the league do not have 27 wins. You have to demonstrate some level of competency to have the best odds to win the number 1 overall pick. But again, no one's listening to me, so scratch that.
I just think people will find a way. I will say 27 games, and I'd have to look at the history of the league. It's not hard to win 27 games, but you could also see a team like the idea of I'm trying to build a contender long-term, but I have to get to 27 games. It really would steer off-season decisions, because you would say hey, we built a really young core that's going to be good, but can we win 27 games with these guys? Do we need to bring in a little more talent to get to that shelf? So 27, it's definitely up from 25. 24, we can't make Kobe, his name can't be tied to taking.
You're right.
We can't do it.
Scratch that one.
Scratch that one. We're going to have to scratch it.
Same with 23. Scratch that one too.
Where's there a lot of feedback about this idea? So 2 of the proposals are 18 teams, which I understand. I like the idea of flat odds. Again, I just think there's going to be loopholes to all this, and we'll find a new thing we hate here in 2 years' time. But the middle one that you talked about expands to 22, including playoff teams. So if you lose in the first round, then you're entered into the draft. And then there would be this minimum floor where, you can move up or down in some of these different things, different scenarios.
Well, because in that proposal, they would use a 2-year, your record over 2 years.
Even this one, Mark, let's just look at there's teams that can be really bad for 1 year and lower things down. I guess maybe if you have this threshold, you can't do it. But you can have a team that's bad. Like the Pacers are horrible this year, but they're going to be good next year. You combine their records and it shows that they're actually an average team. So
that's the way the WNBA does it. So there is some precedent for it. But man, just reading it and trying to keep track of it again, you want this to be accessible for the fans too. You want your fans to exactly understand what's happening here. So, man, I can't wait to see how it turns out. Because again, May ain't that far away. And I'm not.
It's very close.
I'm not so sure. Whatever the final product is, whatever is put to vote, is it going to get 23 yes votes?
Yeah.
Now I imagine the league wouldn't put something up for vote that it wasn't pretty sure it would pass, but 23 out of 30 votes is a lot, man.
So there's just a lot going on in the NBA. We talked about this on last week's show, but expansion, Europe, and now we basically have 8 weeks to figure out a whole new anti-tanking system. I'm starting to be a little concerned with some of these. And like I said, my biggest concern is that, it's funny. I grew up in the David Stern era, and David Stern was this guy that, to me, again, you have a different perspective. You were older, you were covering the league under him, but I had this impression that he wasn't afraid to step in and be an iron fist, even at sometimes maybe bending the rules to force what he thought was best for the league. And in hindsight, I think he did a pretty good job of that. Adam Silver seems to think that he's going to build a system that is perfect. And part of me goes, The problem is your teams know they can take advantage of the system, and they're doing it. Isn't there just a way to be tough on them to say, hey, we all know what we're doing here. We don't need to build this machine that gets you to stop doing this. Stop doing it, or I'll come down with an iron fist on you. It just feels to me like that's the only solution here. And whatever complex machine he builds is only going to be exploited and maybe alienate the fans who don't even understand how it works in the first place.
Well, I think the same thing would have happened back. The NBA teams are smart, and every NBA office has multiple strategists whose job it is to find loopholes. I mean, that is their job. So that's always going to happen. But you have to say, in Silver's defense, the scrutiny in 2026 is just at a completely different level than it was in 2006. Like you said, NBA Twitter is very loud.
They hate everything.
And when everybody and like this was almost like a unifying moment. Like nobody liked any of these concepts that leaked out. So but I do also worry, is this whole thing, are we going to, in 5 years, in 7 years, are we going to look back at this and say, this was an overreaction to a draft that was super deep?
Yes.
And that's what made teams behave this way. Because it's not just DeBonsa and Peterson and Boozer at the top. Like 2 weeks ago, no one was even talking about Berries, and now he's in this. I mean, like, there are more than 10 players that fans and front offices, frankly, are salivating over in this draft. And that's uncommon. You don't usually have, where we're excited about the 10th pick or the 12th pick, but this draft is like that.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder, like, are the changes too drastic? Like, draft experts do not project the same kind of talent next season. So theoretically, we wouldn't see the same level of tanking either.
Well, perhaps that too is a trait of this era of NBA, a little bit of overreaction. We're going to take a break, Mark, but before we do, I just want to ask this question. What percentage, like the Board of Governors had a lot going on. We're going to get to some of the other things, but tanking seems to be the biggest one that came out. I mean, all the stories were about it. 50% of the conversation in league circles about tanking? Is it more than that? Like, how big of a deal was this specific story relative to the other ones coming out of the Board of Governors?
Well, the three main focuses of this Board of Governors session: tanking, certainly, an open forum discussion about tanking, and then also domestic expansion and NBA Europe. So those were the three focuses. But with Adam Silver coming out and revealing that there's going to be a vote in May that was not on the schedule, that tells you how significant and how important this issue is. The tanking talk, it hasn't just been the last month. It's been months that this has been front and center for the whole league. So it's a huge deal. There's no sugarcoating it.
Well, let's take a break. One thing I will think, we'll get to the other thing, 65 game rule expansion, maybe even European expansion on the other side. I will say, this is the time of year you should be tuning into the NBA with your casual. And I hope the sprint to figure out tanking is not the story during what I expect to be a great playoffs. But let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to get to all the other stories from the Board of Governors meeting, including expansion. The tournament is back. The upsets are inevitable, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. I always give you my slate. One with the Nuggets game tonight. I'm going Nuggets, Warriors, Peyton Watson, 12.5 points, higher minutes restriction, but no Aaron Gordon. Kristaps Porzingis, 1.5 3-pointers, 5-out offense. I think they're going to hit him higher. Nikola Jokic, triple-double, 0.5. He seems to be getting them every single night. I'm going higher. Download the app today. Use the promo code ALLNBA to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code ALLNBA. Underdog. Make picks. Win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-MY-RESET or 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Also want to tell you guys about Shopify. What kind of dreams did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? Well, how about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business or side hustle? Well, if you're going to be selling something, Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Shopify even powers the ALLCITY merch store. We have some new merch in there too. If you haven't checked it out in a while, links in the description below. But Shopify has you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial. Start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. All right, back here, segment 2 of the LNBA show. I'm with Marc Stein. You can read him over at the Steinline Substack. You can also catch him on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Marc, so let's get to the other ones. And expansion, I'm guessing, is the next one on the docket, the next big story here.
I mean, that was supposed to be the headline news, but as you said, I think we started in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Classic. But we set the stage for this. This was to vote about exploring Vegas and Seattle and exploring the idea of expanding here in a couple of seasons. What is the update now from those conversations?
So the vote was unanimous. All 30 teams want to explore expansion. And basically what this is going to come down to is, are the bids going to land in that 7 to 10 billion range that has been projected for expansion fees? Let's not forget, only one team in NBA history has sold for more than $6 billion. That was the Lakers sale last year. So they're looking for expansion fees, the level of which we have never seen. And if they get it, if they identify groups that are vetted and look good and sound good and willing to pay between 7 to 10 billion in expansion fees, we're going to get expansion. If the bids fall short of that, I don't think we'll get expansion. And Adam Silver did say, we are not we might add 2 teams, we might add 1, we might add none. I think we're going to get 2. I think Seattle and Vegas groups will emerge, willing to pay 7 to 10 billion. But that's the process now. Finding those groups. The league knows about these markets. I mean, Seattle and Vegas, they need no introduction to the NBA.
Well, let me ask this question. Why are prices up so much? Obviously, there's a new TV deal. I know some, that, but to your point, it wasn't that long ago that we had a Clippers $4 billion sale that seemed insane. And oh my God. And now we're talking about 2.5 times bigger than that for these expansion teams. So why are are there more buyers, more people interested, new types of buyers? Why is it?
I mean, the NBA, for all of its supposed ills and for all of its critics, it's a business that a lot of people want to get into. We saw the Celtics go for more than $6 billion. The Lakers went for $10 billion. And basically what's happening here is the league's owners are saying, if we're going to go from 1/30th of the national TV pie to 1/32nd of the national TV pie, we have to be compensated for that. And remember, expansion fees are not shared with the players. So
right.
Just for fun, just for hypothetical math, let's pretend that Vegas and Seattle, the groups that buy these expansion franchises, pay $8 billion each. That's $16 billion divided by 30 with $0 shared with the players. That's a huge slice of cash for the existing 30 owners, and they think they can get it. And I don't think that the 7 to 10 billion range leaked on a whim. They must believe they can get it if those are the figures being bandied about.
And I see Steve Augustin in the chat says it's inflation, Adam. Like, yes, I understand inflation, but this is more than the rate of inflation. We're talking 2.5x a price of a record sale from 12 years ago. So this is not just, yes, things are a little more expensive than they were. This is a lot more. There's a lot more demand. So Let me ask this one. What's the enthusiasm for people behind the scenes, board of governors and people just in the NBA for this? Is this something everybody's excited about? Or is there like, cautious optimism that this is the right thing?
Hey, I mean, Adam, that was again, this press conference did have many memorable quotes. And like I said, usually I'm guilty of, I can't wait for Adam Silver to hold this press conference and we're going to ask him A, B, C, D, and E. And I can't wait to hear these answers. And then we get answers that are, somewhat just not really revelatory. But one of the first things Adam said at this press conference was he admitted there are owners who flat out question, why are we expanding? Do we need this? So again, I don't think it's unanimous. You need 23 teams to approve expansion. This vote went, excuse me, Wednesday's vote was purely to explore expansion, and it was 30 zip. Of course, they're all going to explore it. But to approve it, you got to have 23 teams that say yes. And so the bids have to be right. The bids have to be that lucrative. But instinct tells me that they're going to be.
The 65 game rule has also been a huge topic of discussion. I know there as well. And I think it's a big topic. I think the cynical thing that people will look at and say, oh, everyone just hated Joel Embiid years back, but now that it's not him, everybody seems to care about it. To me, it has more to do with it was just as recently as 2 or 3 seasons ago, 65 games felt like an anomaly. If you play less than that, it's an anomaly. But this year, it's been pointed out on this show and in every other show, all the top guys are in danger of dropping below that 65 game rule. So to me, the 65 game rule is a big topic, but the bigger topic is why can't guys play more than 65 games? It used to be an anomaly. Now it feels like you're lucky if you can make it to 65 games. So what was the conversation of the Board of Governors meeting around that specific topic?
Again, Adam Silver basically said he thinks the 65 game rule is working. And so that was the headline, that in a week when the Players Association came out and said they want the rule abolished, and they were doing that on Cade Cunningham's behalf, it was interesting to me that Adam Silver came right back at them and said, we're not changing it. We like it, as opposed to, the more conciliatory tone that I think a lot of people would have expected, that, yes, we'll meet with the union in the summer and discuss this. But here's the thing, like, Jokic can only miss one more game. The last time I tracked it, which was at the start of the week, like, Jokic could only miss one more. Wemby could only miss 3 more.
Yep.
Luka and Shea could only miss 5 more. But let's just say, hypothetically, Jokic and Wemby suddenly became ineligible for MVP voting. If Cade and Jokic and Wemby were all ineligible, this thing would get a lot louder.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, it looked like several of these guys were going to be falling short of 65 games. And now, as it stands, only Cade among the true MVP candidates looks like he's going to miss out. So it's quieted it some. But, I mean, look, there's a lot of, I have to think we haven't heard the last of this, that this is going to come up in the summer. And the union will keep making noise about it. But hey, this was collectively bargained. The union agreed to this rule in 2023. So they, can they just turn around 3 years later and say, we hate it, let's change it? I'm not sure.
Well, like tanking, I'm curious if this is a one-year thing, because like I said, in the previous years, it's only been around for a handful of years to begin with, but in the previous years, it felt like 1 or 2 guys was there. Maybe there was some load managing going on throughout the course of the season. But right now it feels like Cade Cunningham's coming back from a collapsed lung. This isn't a thing of, he rushes back now because he wants to make this and we hope his hamstring's okay. You worry about, what does it mean to rush back from a collapsed lung and try to play?
Don't. I would not advise that.
I wouldn't either, but it means a lot to a guy to be an MVP candidate, to be an All-NBA player if you've never made a first-team All-NBA. So part of me thinks that this is, once again, we're trying to legislate, create this Rube Goldberg machine that doesn't really address the problem, but works its way around it. And it's like every time you do this, you have to create a new piece of the machine because something goes haywire that was unforeseen. What else? Is there anything else from this Board of Governors that you think is worth mentioning quickly?
Well, there also is the NBA Europe piece, and I don't know how much appetite everyone here has to discuss that, but that's
I do.
That's that was another one where Adam Silver came out and said the best outcome would be working with the EuroLeague. So that was another that was not going to make headlines given everything else that was discussed and happened at this meeting. But that's pretty big too, that the NBA now is basically saying we want to try to join forces with the EuroLeague instead of going head to head against it. Now, NBA Europe, the plan is to have 12 locked in franchises and 4 that qualify annually. The EuroLeague has 20 teams, including 13 that are fully licensed. So all 20, not even those 13 that are licensed, they're not all going to be able to go into NBA Europe. So exactly what a merger or collaboration would look like, I don't have the answers, but I am highly intrigued because to me, like the NBA, we know they want to have teams in the major cities in France, Spain, Italy, Germany, but also England. In England, you don't have top level basketball right now. So you're going to have expansion teams in London and Manchester, but you don't want NBA Europe to be all expansion teams. You want as many of the established powerhouses. It would be great if Real Madrid and Barcelona, some of the powers in Greece and Turkey, we need those established teams.
Olympiacos, Panathinaikos.
Right. We need those teams in an NBA Europe for it to be strong. If it's going to be NBA Europe, it's got to be the best of Europe. So It is good news to hear that the NBA wants to do this in concert with the EuroLeague, because I think NBA Europe going head to head against the EuroLeague with and again, I think we touched on that somewhat last week. That's 2027, 28. They want to start NBA Europe. Domestic expansion in 2028, 29. You got to have good players in NBA Europe, but you're also expanding the NBA to 32 teams. You're going to need 576 players, including two-ways, in a 32-team NBA. So there's a lot of new jobs being created here.
I might have to come out of retirement, man. All these openings. I maybe there's a team for me out there. I didn't think I was good enough, but if there's a team for everybody, I might have a chance.
You're not 40 yet, right? You still got some eligibility.
Well, I'm 42, but you know what? LeBron's inspired me. I'm gonna get back in shape, see what I can do. It just feels like Adam Silver is biting off an awful lot. There's a lot on the plate, and things are happening fast. I hope he can spin all of these various plates. But to your point, this was a big week for the Board of Governors, and the headline out of it was these tanking rules that were not well received. We'll have to see how that evolves. Mark, is there any quick hitters or anything before we get out of here?
No, just once again, all NBA chat. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Thank you again for putting up with me. I promise, I think I am inching close. I still sound bad.
Hey, you sound great.
I think I sound a lot better than last week. So I'm hoping by next weekend I'll be almost passable.
Well, you always sound great to me, man. And this was good info, good intel on what was a very crazy week behind the scenes in the NBA. I'm sure we'll have more updates next week as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Tim Legler is back on the show tomorrow and Wednesday. Yeah, Legs and me are back Monday and Wednesday. We got Jason Timpf on Friday. That's it for this.
I gotta do a show with Legs. I haven't been on with him in a long time. We got to figure that out. I miss Legs.
Hey, pull my arm, man. Let's make it happen. I think it works. Everybody, thanks so much for watching and tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe. We are doing this 4 times a week. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
We all silly like the mayor.